Hey, time to shine today. Varsity Squad. It is Scott Ferguson. And I got a little slice of my homeboy here, Terry Bean. He is the Coach-Sultant. That's a combination of coach and consulting extraordinary. In Michigan, people would think that I was connected. People would come to say, Fergie, who can I talk to? And a lot of times when people came to me and asked me, who can I talk to meet someone for this? One of my first texts or calls was to Terry Bean. So I might take credit for putting people in touch, but Terry's the guy that actually put me in touch. I don't know anybody in the mitten. That's affectionately the name for the state of Michigan because it's shaped like a mitten. Uh, I don't know anybody more connected in the mitten than Terry Bean. I'm not just saying that. I'm not just blowing smoke up your ass. It's the truth. Terry's been a catalyst for good things happening in and around the Detroit area for over a decade, probably way more than that, probably 20, 25 years, but he's being humble. He's a published author, sought-after speaker, intuitive business coach, and just a fun guy to be around, which I can attest to that for some happy hour nights and whatnots, but we won't get into that too much. Some of his credits include founding business networking group Motor City Connect, which I was a part of for probably a good 10 years, producing TEDx Detroit, which is a really big deal there in the mitten, and winning an award from the President Obama for volunteer service. And again, I'm super stoked to have Terry on. It's a long time coming. He's a really good friend of mine from Michigan and somebody that I really looked up to in the Coach-Sultant side and just an ultimate connector. And Terry, if you could just come on, introduce yourself to the squad. But first, what is your favorite color and why?
Wow, man, that's an interesting question. My favorite color is indigo blue. If you ever look at cars, there's a Dodge Challenger that's rolling around in this electric ass bright
beautiful
blue, right? And that is the exact shade when I say indigo blue that I'm thinking of. And I was seconds away from picking up that car at the end of fall, but ended up getting an Audi convertible.
Nice.
I'm not feeling bad for myself, man.
No, you're not, and you shouldn't. Indigo blue, that's royalty too, man. That's like a real royal, regal feeling to it. That's fantastic.
Is.
Hey, Terry, give us the origins, because I know you from networking and going to you and having usually really brief conversations because everyone wants a piece of you at every event and whatnot. But give us the origins from where you're from, how you got to where you're at. And I know you were a Hergel, an Eastern Michigan Hergel, right? And that what you always say. Well, it used to be the Hurons back in the day, but then they changed it to the Eagles just for political correctness and whatnot. But give us your origins, please.
So I grew up between Michigan and Minnesota. My parents got divorced when I was a lad, like 4 or 5 years old. Mom got remarried, so she moved me from Detroit to Minnesota right before 6th grade. So I tell people I spent the formative years in the Twin Cities, but I came back every month. My dad still lived in the Detroit area, so I was flying back and forth every month. Moved down, I came back here. My dad in my junior year in college, slick dude this guy was, said, you go to college anywhere in the country and you pay for it. You go to school anywhere in the state of Michigan, I'll pick up the tab.
Yeah, nice.
And I was like, well, that just limited the choices pretty quick, man. And ended up at Eastern for a couple of reasons. One, state was way too big. I didn't think I'd ever make it to an 8 o'clock class. I didn't realize that I wasn't going to make it to any 8 o'clock class, regardless of how close it was. Right? So in Eastern was close to U of M, and I was dating a girl that was a Wolverine at the time. So it was kind of convenient. Boo. That's right. I left. I actually met my first wife while at Eastern. Okay. And when right before we got married, she ended up getting transferred to Columbus, and I moved down to Columbus, Ohio for a handful of years.
Okay.
And that's actually, we were talking about our mutual friend, Bob Berg. I first met Bob when I was in a networking group in Columbus at 26, 27 years old. He came as the keynote presenter to the group one time. And so that's when I got into business networking. There was a group that was based on BNI. In fact, the lady that started it worked very closely with Ivan Meisner as a director for him for a few years before moving back east. And so we had this whole kind of networking set up, the weekly deal. I ended up being an area director for that group and managed 5 or 6 different chapters. I'm 27 years old, running around telling all the old heads what to do and how to network more effectively. And it worked out, man. And I really liked it. But when I moved back to Detroit in 2000, I couldn't find that same kind of group. Networking is in a group setting is about having the right people around you. So it's not the structure, it's the people, right?
Sure.
And so I messed around with a few different organizations here in town for a little while, but 2005, I really, really started missing it. And I've been connecting with people on LinkedIn all over the world, right? Learning about their culture, their places. And what happened was I realized that none of them gave a shit about Detroit.
All
And at
right.
that time, '05, '06, we were on a downward spiral. So I took what I knew about real world networking and I took what I knew about online networking and merged the two. In Motor City Connect, '06 timeframe
Yeah.
became the very first, at least that I was aware of, hybrid online and real world networking group.
Sure.
And it just shot off, man. It took off like a rocket, and it was something that the area needed. And as a result, that launched TEDx Detroit, and somewhere in there, people started asking me to come talk on networking. I was like, sure, and I found out that I have a knack for flapping my gums, and
People listen to you. Absolutely.
occasionally they do. Sometimes they actually even take the advice. It's amazing when that happens. So it's been a hell of a run, dude. It's been a hell of a run.
Yeah, it's impressive too. So what what do you think then, Terry, makes a good connector? Somebody that can go into a city that you're familiar with, but you're not, and kind of go in and grow the group from what it started as to where it's what it's become. What do you think makes that?
I think there's three things that really need to happen. One, you have to have a genuine concern for the success of other people, right? That's the starting point. You got to care about others, right? You don't have to like them, but you got to care.
Sure.
Number two, you got to listen, man. You have to have exceptional listening skills. And number three is kind of a hybrid between you got to have some memory system, whether it's inside your own head, right? And you got a good memory, or you've got a great CRM that allows you to manage those contacts. I don't care how
Right.
you do it, but you need something there, because if you're not taking the time to introduce and connect the people, how could you be a good connector?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously I know you and you have the service first. You do everything in the service of others. Where did that come from? Because it's not just you're not born with that service gene, if you will, for lack of a better term. Where did that come from, Terry?
It's interesting. If you ask me, do you have a need to be liked? I would tell you no. I don't really care what other people think. So it must be that I have a really strong need to be liked, and the only way I can figure out how to do that is to be of service first. It
Sure.
like there's some psychological damage that happened at some point that I haven't worked through on the couch yet, and
Right.
it must exemplify itself as, hey, need to help others.
So we know you're a connector and stuff, but do you have like a company, Tribean, or like what consists of that?
TriBean's a consulting, coaching, and speaking firm,
Okay, tell us a
right?
little
So
bit
I
about it, Terry.
so I look at my world, and I do business growth, right, for others. I deliver that through training, I deliver it through keynote speaking, I deliver it through coaching. And the reality is, if you're going to grow your business, you often have to grow you first. So I look at the individual from a 360-degree portion. So I'll have coaching calls with clients, and we'll be talking about their sex life, and they'll be like, how does this have anything to do with my business? I'm like, man, if you ain't taking care of business at home, you ain't gonna have time to
Right.
take care of business at work, man.
Sure.
So it's really, and people forget, right? We run around trying to compartmentalize way too much, and we don't really need to. What we need to do is show up as our authentic self,
Sure.
right? We need to double down on actually who we are, as opposed to wearing masks or hiding who we are.
Sure.
um Masks not COVID related, I meant, you know.
Gotcha. So then, okay, so let's take it to this. So if I am out at a networking event and I'm pressing flush, which hopefully we move into phase 2 or 3 or whatnot when we can actually go out and do this. What am I listening for at the event that would be a great prospect contact connection for Terry or
So
Tribiz?
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. So for me, a good referral is an owner or a sales leader that's got a team of 3 to 30. I'm not trying to go after fortune companies. I like working in the small, and it's not even medium business, as the Treasury Department calls it. I like working with small business owners. I want to help them get better at doing what they're doing. So normally they're expressing challenges with, I'm not reaching my market the right way. I'm looking for new ways to get into market. I don't have the right people in the right seats, right? I know I've got good folks, but they're not doing what they need to do.
Sure.
So those things, right? Issues with business growth are the people that I'm really looking to connect with.
Love that. And so if you bring somebody in and they're a prospect, not quite a client yet, and you're asking them questions, or maybe even you take them on as a client, Terry, what is your secret sauce, if you will, for finding their blind spot?
It's just questions, man. It really is a
Powerful
matter
questions.
of taking them through that conversation. You
Right.
know, when you read my bio, it said intuitive
Sure.
coach, right?
Wow.
I'm not certified. I don't practice any real particular
Sure.
methodology. What I do is the two things I reference that make me a good connector. I listen really well, and I have such a vast amount of experience through thousands upon thousands of conversations over
Sure.
25 plus years of doing this, that I've got this framework that I
Right.
can, oh, hey, this is this, and I connect dots really well.
No, and you do that. And one thing I've noticed about you is, like, when I see somebody that I, respect and whatnot, I'll take a step back even while I'm in the same room with them. And I've noticed that, like, you don't only listen with your ears, but you listen with your eyes, and you're looking at body's language, and you actually are a really great mirror of, for lack of a better term, of somebody, and actually, getting the most out. And you did it with me when I've asked you for stuff. You're like, all right, and so it's that's a great, you're listening not only with your ears but your eyes and every other senses that you have to find their blind spots. So Terry, I've always wanted to kind of ask you this: if you could get in that DeLorean with maybe Marty McFly or whatnot, right, and head back to the 22-year-old Terry Bean, what kind of knowledge nuggets would you drop on him to help him level up from where he's at, maybe shorten his learning curve?
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I love that. Don't be all things to all people would be number one, right? So focus your energy, focus your time. When you're like, I refer to myself as a little helper monkey a lot, right? And the older I get, the more, like, I'm still wired to help 3 people a day,
Sure.
but I really want to be more selective in who those 3 people are,
Hmm.
right? I also want to make sure, like, I needed to work on my receiving abilities earlier than I did.
Receptivity, right? Yeah.
Yeah, super good at giving, really less good at taking.
Right.
So I would have figured out how to offset that, find some level of balance in that. So
Okay.
those would be the pieces that I would slap little Terry around with.
Be like, hey, listen, be open to getting. I mean, we're like, I have a servant, spirit as well, or servant heart. And and I always kind of go back to our mutual friend Bob Berg, where he made the analogy of, if we're breathing in, we're breathing in oxygen. If we breathe out carbon monoxide. And the plant, an actual plant or a tree, it breathes in the carbon monoxide, breathes out oxygen. So we're all taking and giving at all times. We just never even know. We just have to be more conscious, right? Maybe of
That's right.
of the situations. That's fantastic. And that you even admitted that you would tell them, be like, don't be afraid to get as well. So Terry, you've accomplished a ton. What would be the big? What's the big thing that you're really going after to accomplish before that last day, that last breath?
I still, on my list of things to do, I haven't spoken to a group of over 5,000 people,
Okay.
right? So at some point, I want to be on a stage in front of, and I've used 10,000 in the past.
Sure.
Candidly, I'm not sure we're ever going to see 10,000
I
people
know
showing up at
again.
an event again, man.
Right.
So that's one issue. The other thing that I would really like to do is, I got to get another book out, man. You and I were talking
Hmm.
about book writing. I'm not saying who's writing a book because I don't know anything about
Right.
that, but on the off chance, I would like to finish one of the 2 other manuscripts that I have. So
Gotcha.
I'm gonna have to do that. It's funny because I read Rich Dad Poor Dad while I was writing the second book, and the lady that he was talking to in this book said, I'm a great writer, but I'm afraid I can't sell, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to sell. I don't want to sell. And he's like, it doesn't say #1 book writer. It says #1 book seller.
Sure.
And that gave me pause, because you never, I mean, I don't know if you ever get to a point where you're like, hey, I've sold enough books. Yay. But I had that same issue, because, 6 years ago, 8 years ago, when I was doing this, same issue with the receiving thing, right?
Sure.
It's hard to stand there and go, buy my book,
Right.
and you kind of need to.
Right. No, absolutely. Absolutely. You know what? Actually, Chris Widener and Berg actually gave me I guess, a piece of advice about that. To get you in front of the 5,000 people is to their budget for the actual material for a lot of speaking events is higher than to pay your speaking fee. It's telling you speak for free, but buy books. And maybe they'll buy enough books to get you in front of all those people, and then you'll make a little bit of that money off the books and get you in front of more people. That's just something that was passed on to me. I thought that was genius. So you're not really demanding a speaking fee to get in front of a lot of people. But you're saying buy the books, which is going to get you promoted anyways. But
Shoot, that'd be great.
Right.
I got a great deal with my publisher. That's fine with me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Terry, we talk in Time to Shine today about the dash. I've blogged about it. I did a whole hour-long podcast about my dash. But how do you want your dash to be remembered? And that dash is your life date to death date, that dash in the middle. How do you want that to be remembered for you?
I got one of those, like, LTU. Remember Lawrence Tech University,
Yes.
right? They've got
Southfield.
Yeah, right. They have a Leaders and Innovators award series that they do every month or every year, and I've got a plaque from them for receiving that at one point. And mine they asked a very similar question, and it's, how do you want to be remembered? And mine was, I want to be the guy that changed the energy in Detroit.
Absolutely.
And in 2009, when I received that, 2010, whatever it was, Detroit was still, not what it is today.
Right.
And if I look back on the last decade and I think about the amount of time, I don't know if you're familiar with Ho'oponopono. It's a Hawaiian mystic healing thing,
Right.
right? So the amount of time I spent in that mindset, thinking about Detroit and cleaning and cleansing and clearing all of the energy in and around the city, and just the amount of effort and time and energy put into Motor City Connect and TEDx Detroit and 313D Love and making March 13th Detroit Day and all of that stuff, right, is I had a small part in helping change the city to where we are, right? Opening the suburbs' eyes to what the city could be, changing the narrative.
Absolutely. And it's coming around due to the part that you're playing in it and the other people. Detroit, I kind of look at like a little brother. Like, I can talk shit about it, but if anybody else does, game on. You know what I'm saying? So
that's exactly it.
It's kind of like that. So I got him. So, Terry, what out of take your cell phone out of it, take your computer out of it. What are 3 things that nouns, people, places, or things that you can't live without?
Paddleboard.
Love it.
Kid. Music.
I love it. Pedalboard, kit, and music. And, they're like, I always say chicken wings is my third if I get asked that. Like Sparky's, I miss those Sparky chicken wings. They're in M59 nice. In Duck Lake. You know what I'm saying? So people that are listening probably don't know what we're talking about, but it's like my favorite wings in the world. I'm a snob when it comes
Wait
to
a second, man. So I know no one knows what we're talking about, but Detroit itself is 142 square miles, and
right.
Scott and I actually, of all the places, we both live, and we're lived on the exact same lake, right? 40 miles outside. So that place that you just mentioned, I've never been to, and it's like 5 miles up the street.
It's
so
literally 5 miles up the street.
I'm gonna have to. Thank you for that,
Terry. What? Yeah, we'll definitely meet for something. Also, what's your definition of a life well lived then?
Being able to do what you want when you want without having to worry about whether you can afford it or have time, or what's going to happen if you're doing it, what's going to fall apart, right? So it's a freedom-esque kind of answer,
Sure.
but it's just living out your the highest self.
Love that. I love it. And that's true. I mean, there's certain aspects that have to go into that, right? I mean, you have to have your health, you have to have money, no
Yep.
matter what anyone says, you have to have the monetary size. Because when you say what you want, when you want, without worries,
Right.
monetary's got to be there. So that's just
100%.
different pillars of harmony that have got to be there. And if you know music, what we talk about, something I learned from James Arthur Ray, which I got to open up for him like 2 months ago, which was actually a highlight so far of my stuff. It wasn't a big event; it was only like 100 people, but it was still pretty cool. And
That's
I just
awesome.
remember he talks about harmony and not balance.
Yeah.
And balance is zero. Harmony is like you're into music. So if you're in a jazz band or something, the guitar's out of whack. That could be like your personal life, or your drums is like your financial life. So if you can get harmony in all those areas, it's kind of like your definition of a life well lived, where you keep harmony going right in those areas to get what you want without worrying. That's what I learned from you. So it's like the way you said it made me think back to that, which was pretty cool. That's
So
awesome.
fun fact, I opened for John Assaraf
Yeah.
years back,
Oh,
right?
yeah, I remember I was there. It was at the Detroit Zoo.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I was
100%.
there.
100%. So that
Yeah.
was really cool.
Yeah.
And I have exactly one tattoo. It took me 8 years to figure out what I was going to have permanently imprinted on my body. And potentially, I'm not 100% sure, but the idea was to have the word harmony tattooed in Chinese characters on my arm.
Wow.
It might say silly white boy thinks this as harmony. I don't have any idea.
He just puts on whatever he wants.
Right. It was 98, so you couldn't just Google what does this actually
Right.
say. I didn't have a phone,
Right.
but it was one of those things, man. So
That's funny.
I appreciated James Arthur Ray's lesson on that.
Yeah,
I have the
fantastic.
5 pillars that I try and
Yeah.
follow all the
That
time.
book, Harmonic Wealth, is fantastic. I loved it. It was good. Him and Asraf were both on the movie The Secret too, or the book
Yep.
The Secret. Fantastic. So we're going to move into, as we wind things down a little bit, Terry, we're going to move into what do we call our leveling up lightning round.
Nice.
You and I could talk 15, 20 minutes on each one of these questions, but you got like 5 seconds.
You got it.
Top of the head. You ready?
Yep.
What's the best leveling up advice you've ever received?
Just do it.
Love it. Love it. Share one of your personal habits that contributes to your success.
Making time for myself in the morning, right?
Yes.
I block out anything but what I want.
Beautiful. So not the book you're reading now, not the flavor of the month, but what's that book? If I was in my doldrums, I come, Terry, man, this, we need to talk about something. And you'd be like, hey, make sure you read this. Like, what's your book?
Way of the Peaceful Warrior by Dan Millman.
Yes, Millman. Absolutely. What's your most commonly used emoji?
I use the crazy tongue out, eyes goofy looking thing most frequently.
Beautiful. If you could be one age for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Probably 37 or 38.
Beautiful.
Right? Decade ago, but knew enough, but not enough.
Right? That's a fun time.
Yeah.
Favorite charity and or organization you like to give your time and or money to?
It's got to be Motor City Blightbusters, man. Just based on what I've done.
Yes. Right? Last question. What's the best decade of music? 60s, 70s, 80s, or 90s?
Shit. I gotta go 80s. If I look at the top 10 albums list, like 7 of them always are from
all around the 80s. Yeah, I love you. You have like Big Hair, Don't Care, all the way down to The Cure, and I love it. That's good stuff. Good stuff. And
Depeche Mode, U2,
yes,
all that stuff.
Absolutely. How can we find you, Terry?
Best place is trybean.com, TRYBEAN.com. So it was a clever name from my Hotmail days in 1996. Somebody already had Terry Bean, and they suggested a bunch of random numbers after it. I'm like, what if I drop the E and the R? And next thing you know, 30 years later, I have a business with that name.
Love it.
And then LinkedIn is where I like spending time.
Gotcha.
And I'm open to connect with people. I've got a page on Facebook. I've got an Instagram account. Right. I don't normally connect with people on Facebook that I don't know anymore.
Right.
just because I don't, but
Sure.
everywhere else I'm wide open.
And all those people will be in the show notes. And Terry, need you to do one more thing for me. Just leave us with one last knowledge nugget you want to drop on the Time to Shine Today varsity squad for them to take with them, internalize, and really work with.
Yeah, so it's really important to invest some time into your network. Get to know these people. And right this second, it's awesome because you can hop on a Zoom call and spend 15 or 20 minutes and dial in and understand who they are and what they're about and what they care about and why their customers should care. And then when you do that and you talk to 30 or 40 people, then connect the dots between the ones that you talk to,
Love it.
because that's where the magic lives, is
It happens
making
there.
those introductions.
That's
Have two people talk about you when you're nowhere around.
That's amazing, that right? And hopefully it's all good stuff, right?
Right. Even if it's bad,
Even if
right?
it's bad, you're still being talked about. In
Right.
squad, you've been dropped a huge masterclass here with my really good friend Terry Bean. It's telling you to invest time in your network, and then it's kind of like three-headed system of being genuine for the concern and success of others. Listen, really listen, not just with your ears, but with your eyes and all your other senses, and have a memory system in place, whether it's a CRM or if you have a great safe of a brain, that's fantastic. But get a CRM anyways, just so you can put it, know who to follow up with. Those are three-headed monster, I like to call it, to really level up your life. Show up as your authentic self. Don't put on a bullshit mask. Get out there and be you. Okay, if anybody of my listeners are out there, which I know there are some that are struggling or they're looking to level up their business, that are businesses 3 to 30 people, give Terry a call. All his information is in my show notes, or else reach out to me. I'll make a personal introduction. He says, don't be all things to all people. Be you. Be genuine. It goes back a couple of things I just said ago. He's the ultimate helper monkey and the Coach-Sultant. His 313D love. I love his thought about Detroit with March 13th being Detroit Day. I didn't even think about that. That's brilliant. 313, that's fantastic. And the reason why I said 313 is that's the area code there in Detroit. He's there changing the energy. And most of all, do what you want when you want without worries. And if to do that, you have to put all those pillars together from all different facets of family, relationships, money. Yes, I said money, people. It's critical. To if you're spiritual, get that in line and be harmonic with it. So, and Terry is humble. He's very generous with his time with us here today. I'm proud to call him a friend. He's always leveling up his health. He's leveling up his wealth. And Terry, you are part of the squad. I appreciate you and everything you did. And thank you so much for coming on, brother.
Appreciate you having me. Thank you very much.
All right. Talk soon.